Ma?
The last episode ended with Sofia, armed with a crowbar, having located Vic and Francis, Oz's mum, in the condemned building in Crown Point. So what will Oz find when he enters the room? Was Sofia unnecessarily cruel or just calculating in her actions? Hi there, it's Micha. Join me for this review if you'd like to find out. The episode starts with a flashback to Oz in his early teens, where we also meet his older and younger brother. After they teased him while playing hide and seek by hiding in an overflow tunnel he can't reach due to his deformed leg, he locks them in there as a punishment.
Have fun getting out!
And heads home as heavy rain starts to fall. While he and Francis watch his favorite movie, the chamber his brothers are trapped in slowly fills with water and they drown. Back in the here and now, Oz finds Vic unconscious in the apartment, with his mother taken by Sofia, and Salvatore and his men on their way up. He sends Vic to safety and to get reinforcements, but stays behind himself.
Get out of here! What about you? They got my ma! Gotta face this head on!
After Sal let out some of his rage, he forces Oz to take him to his lair, or his mother will pay the price. Meanwhile, Sofia entertains Francis, who refuses to play the victim.
Oswald used to rave about this house, how beautiful it was, but I just ain't so impressed.
Until Sofia hits a sore spot.
It's a good thing your other boys died before you could turn them into monsters like us, huh?
You shut your goddamn mouth.
Are they even dead?
Which triggers an episode. After that, she sends in her love toy, psychiatrist Julian Rush, to find out more. After learning from him that Gia, her dead cousin's daughter, may create problems.
Evidently, she's asking to speak to the police. She's the only loose end from the gassing. But Gia saw something that night.
In the meantime, Salvatore and his men enters Oz's base of operations, where Zeke manages to create a distraction, resulting in an all-out fight. While Oz and Sal duke it out, the mobster has a heart attack.
What are you doing?
Which totally pisses Oz off, as he wanted to be the one killing him.
What'd you say? I didn't hear you.
Next, Sofia visits Gia in the orphanage. Turned out that the kid had seen Sofia's gas mask, so she basically comes clean.
They were bad people who deserved it. Don't hurt yourself because of them. You deserve much better than what this family could have offered.
After that, Oz calls her from Sal's phone, offering her the drugs in exchange for his mother. At that point, she realizes an important fact.
I thought that I was different, but I'm still playing my father's game. I'm abiding by his rules.
So she denies to play that game, not caring about the drug operation anymore. And instead of his mother, she sends Oz a bomb that destroys his lab. A blast he just barely got away from. The episode ends with Oz being found by a cop in Sofia's pocket.
If it ain't the penguin.
What you call me?
Sophia wants to see you.
This episode was a bit tricky for me. It was still a great show and we learned quite a lot in this chapter, but what we learned was the issue. As I said in a previous review of this series, I fear that the two villains duking it out, Sofia and Oz, who due to their backstory and moral code became quite relatable, being more anti-heroes than real bad guys, might turn too dark to be likable. Which would result in me being less engaged in their story. And after it already started a bit in the two previous chapters, this one was tough to swallow. Fortunately, not to the point where I disengaged, but it had an effect on me. Though obviously one that was intended by the showrunner. But that doesn't mean I have to like it. About Oz we learn that he was envious of his mother giving his brothers any attention. He wanted her all to himself, to the point where it almost felt incestuous. In previous episodes his relationship to her already felt a bit off, but this one really drove it home. And learning that he was the reason his brothers died kinda was the hair that broke the camel's back for me regarding him as a character. Again, likely intended that way to remind us that we shouldn't root for him, that he is the bad guy. Seeing him as a kid, realizing that the rain that kept falling would probably result in his brother's death, and still not rushing to them to get them out was a real blow. And speaking of blow,
Oh fuck.
There's enough time to get out. I think.
him running away without warning his men, not even shouting out "run," was also a dick move. So much for being there for them. At the end, it is everyone for themselves. At that point, his character really seems to have lost all, well, character. While talking about this episode with a colleague and dear friend, she mentioned that though she also didn't like this development, this all showcases that Oz's character is more complicated and layered as we initially thought. Which is true, but again, not really what I hoped for. Maybe this is meant to prepare us to really dislike or even hate him when the next Batman movie hits theaters. We will have to see. Sofia, on the other hand, who to her credit didn't kill Vic, also lost many sympathy points in this entry, mainly for quite callously setting off a bomb that not only kills Oz's men, but also hurt and probably killed many civilian lives in Crown Point, who are already suffering enough from the aftermath of the flood. On the plus side, she did realize that what she is doing to Gia is basically the same her father did to her, having killed her mother and then condemning her to a life behind bars, a feeling that the orphanage surely projected, which was highlighted by a painful finding.
Did you do this to yourself?
As a result, she promised Gia to find her a good home, maybe even with her, but I guess she will not have time to follow through, as Sofia will likely die or end up in Arkham again at the end of the next episode. Hopefully the latter, as her character is too interesting to be simply killed off. Realizing this all led to Sofia changing course, not being the same monster as her father, which interestingly led to her just being a different kind of monster, because of the bomb and all. By the way, though I like the actor, as I might have mentioned a few times before, I still don't know what function psychiatrist Julian Rush has in this show. So far he didn't really do anything truly helpful or important, at least not enough to keep him around. His introduction to Francis came across as quite cliched.
Francis, I'm Dr. Rush. I'd like to ask you a few questions.
And him helping Sofia to realize what to do next.
Your father's hand is not on your throat anymore. What do you want?
I want Oz to feel pain.
Felt condescending to her character, as if she wouldn't have realized that on her own. I guess that was added to actually give Julian's role a purpose, but it really felt shoehorned in. Maybe he has a solid part to play in the finale? Maybe he has a hidden agenda that will come out there? We will soon know. Again, I still like the show and this was a fine episode. I just lost a good portion of my connection to the main characters, the very thing that made this show so appealing to me at the start, for showcasing that villains are not just bad people, but more often walk the grey areas of morality. So ironically, by adding more layers and depth to our lead characters, they also made them more generic, by making them evil in the more classical sense. Now let's close the review part with a few quick observations and an Easter egg. First off, I found the idea of Salvatore having a heart attack mid-fight brilliantly anticlimactic. You rarely see writers pulling such a stunt, and it totally worked here. Loved that.
Vic?
Secondly, where is Vic? Throughout the episode, Oz was asking about him several times, but he apparently never made it to the man to round up the troops. Did he run, or is he planning a big rescue? I just hope he will make it out whatever he decides to do. Thirdly, I was unsure why this episode was titled Top Hat. In the comics, the Penguin often is depicted wearing a top hat, which would not fit in at all with this iteration of the character. Would they try to squeeze it in as a gag? Fortunately, it was just about Fred Astaire wearing one in the eponymously titled movie, which is Oz's favorite film. Is it okay to say eponymous if the movie was titled after an object and not a person? Well, I guess you know what I mean. Lastly, it was pretty risky on Oz's end to assume he could make it out alive after taking Salvatore to his base, as then he lost his bargaining chip to get his mother back. Luckily for him, Zeke created a distraction.
What's in the car?
Oh fuck.
Which was thanked by Oz not warning him about the bomb. Well, no good deed goes unpunished. Now for the Easter egg. In the scene where Oz kneels before Salvatore, he plans to use gasoline, the same way Oz used to kill his wife and son. The original plan was to go as far as even pouring it over Oz, but that would have messed with his makeup. Even water being poured over him would result in damage, or at the very least made it more uncomfortable for Colin Farrell to act, as he was already sweating so much under there that he had to sit down in a tent on set to cool down between takes. It's details like these that remind us that it is him underneath it all, a fact that one tends to forget because the makeup is flawless, as is Colin's acting. And with that being said, let's get to the rating. Well, I thought this would become quite a short video again, but boy was I wrong. So let's keep it short here. It was another good episode, but due to the ongoing character changes, even though they are done intentionally, I didn't like this one as much as the previous entries. Story-wise, it was totally convincing, except for the few issues I called out. But for me, it was the weakest chapter so far. But it is still better than what most other shows present as their best episodes. I'm rating this one with 7.5 out of 10 points. It was good enough and almost great, but just almost. I expect the finale to be fantastic though. Fingers crossed. What about you? Do you agree with this assessment? Do you also feel they drive our anti-heroes too much into classic villain territory? Whatever you like to share, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, share or subscribe. So much for now, see you next time, and thanks for watching. Not caring about the drug operation anymore. Not caring about the drug... I found the idea of Salvatore having a heart attack mid-fight brilliantly anticlimactic. Fred Astaire wearing one in the eponymously